So currently, I'm the performance director for men's basketball at UCLA. Prior to that, I've been in the football side of things for about the previous 12 years.
Hmm.
I served at Iowa State, University of Pittsburgh, Notre Dame, University of Illinois, and then prior to the University of Illinois, I was at the University of Cincinnati for 6 to 8 years working with men's basketball at the start of my career. So I've transitioned from basketball to football, back to basketball. So I've gained a lot of experience and perspective along the way. I would just say this as it pertains to specificity. We can go back and we can talk football versus basketball.
Hmm.
The main thing, right, in talking about a system, we have to go ahead and develop those certain biomotor abilities: speed, strength, power, stamina, suppleness, and whatnot. Understand the bioenergetic demands of the sport. And then from a systematic standpoint, you have to understand who you're working for and what they want, what their practice structure looks like, what their developmental plan looks like. And then you need to develop those things after you acquire those things. So again, it becomes acquisition, development, and then maintenance.
And would that be part of your key pillars when you're working with athletes at UCLA, or what are your key pillars there when training athletes?
Yeah, and I talked about this briefly when we talked about the differences and the similarities between football and basketball.
Hmm.
The aerobic system is huge, right? You have to be able to develop the relationships. That would be huge. And then the other foundational things you have to manage and balance performance and injury rate. So again, you got to keep everybody on the field of play. You got to keep them on the court. Those are the main things. So again, I continue to say aerobic system because it gives us the ability to train the next day, right?
Mhm.
I'm saying less about specific qualities of strength, speed, power, and I'm talking more about stamina. And then I'm talking about the relationship piece, because I can have the right program and I can have the right system, but if I don't have the relationships, nor do I if I have the buy-in, that's going to be a really challenging piece, right? When I first got here, and I'd worked with Coach Cronin 10, 15 years ago at Cincinnati, and our kids played open gym and had open runs for the first 14 days that I had them. That was kind of something that he wanted to go ahead and get done. He wanted them working with one another. And I think that this goes into the new day and age of, like, you have this NIL era, you've got a new roster, right? You have to gel, you have to coordinate things together. So what his primary focus was, he wanted them to work together through their conditioning with their skill work, all encompassing. So what I have done, kind of our foundational piece, we probably didn't get to lay the foundation the way I wanted to early on last year.
Mhm.
Now that I've been in the system for a year, I'll have roughly a 12-week block with our guys. But we began last summer by a lot of open runs, working together. I would go ahead and manage the time on the court. I would not
Mhm.
manage intensity, nor would I manage kind of what those open runs look like in terms of what we were trying to get done. So I just looked at it in terms of, like, that foundational piece was built there on the court. We got into preseason. I had to go ahead and just make sure that we were going ahead and taking care of the aerobic piece, because we're highly anaerobic coaches, stopping a lot to teach, but man, we practice hard. So again, it's still understanding that the balance of performance and injury rate, and then the foundational piece of what our aerobic brings for our recovery in season to go ahead and push us through this travel and push us through this tournament run that we're about to go on. They might not, they might be ready, but they're not prepared, and I think
Mhm.
that goes back to the readiness versus preparedness. And I would say this, right? Young people, when they come to us, regardless of if they're strong, or if they're powerful, if they have stamina, they're still untrained, right?
Mhm.
So with those guys being untrained, I think that it's one of those deals that you have to go ahead and simplify everything. They don't understand the major movements. They don't understand how to move. They don't understand what those things look like. They've been in the gym working with personal trainers. They do the fancy stuff. I'm not into the fancy stuff unless they've gotten the basics and the foundational things taken care of. So again, they are and appear like they're more developed. However, they need to be refined.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely challenging. I think it's probably more challenging for the staff because, I mean, these guys, it's amazing. 18 to 21-year-old guys, 22-year-old guys, they can go ahead and recover like that.
Sure,
I think,
yeah.
but at the same point in time, the biorhythmic piece is real. It's a real challenge for these guys, but it's a real challenge for our team. You know, the travel is real. We like to kind of get into a rhythm, right? So if we play a game, right, I look at it in terms of the game, and then I work backwards. So game day -1, what are you looking for? Game day -2, what are you looking for? Game day -3, what are you looking for? So sometimes the travel kind of messes those things up in terms of what you're trying to get done from a physical sense. But the biorhythms are definitely influenced. They definitely have to go through a little bit of an alarm phase early in the year. We did not play well early in the year with our travel schedule. So again, we're at the end of the road here. Hopefully we've developed a little bit of a system here to get these guys into a rhythm. So again, for example, like what our game day looks like.
Right, yeah.
And what our game day -1 to 3 looks like. So just an example, right? Today we're game day -1, right? So what are you looking for? You're looking for a neural touch. What do you change based on what you're doing off the plane, potentially, right? So again, we shorten down practice a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead with some recovery modalities on the road, for example. Game day -2, typically I like to go ahead and hit the guys on that day with our true strength work, right? So kind of our maintenance work. If I've got guys that aren't getting minutes, we may go ahead and stress those guys a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But we primarily take and consider the entire body there right before we get on the plane. And then we've got some things we do on the plane and then right off the plane to go ahead and kind of counter, our shortening of our hip and whatnot where we're sitting, some of our tissue requirements that we're after. And then game day -3, we typically go ahead and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and address the tendon structure. We're going to go ahead and do things a little more submaximally. Our practices may look a little different from an aerobic standpoint in that day. But again, we're kind of in a groove. So if the travel goes ahead and changes what we're trying to get done, we have to consider those things, and more along the lines, less is more at this point. So again, we don't want more stress. We're trying to manage stress, and that's really all we are, stress managers. Do what you can be coached on, and whatever your coaches are actually proficient in. You may have a certified strength coach, you may just have your sport coach, but keep it really simple. I think that the biggest thing that everyone gets caught up in is all the fancy, glamorous exercises that we see online. Know how to squat, know how to hinge, push weight, pull weight, walk with sleds. And I would say this, even going back to what my guys do, I need to coach less technically, especially in season. Mm-hmm. So we need to have mastered those things. And if I choose to do something different, it has to be so simple that we're walking and towing a sled, we're pulling a sled. So again, something that the kids don't get worn out with the technical cues. And I would say with the high school level, and I've got high school age kids at this point, children myself, keep it very consistent. And if they can't do it on their own, most likely you shouldn't ask them to do that. If they haven't acquired, right, and then develop those things and the ability to move correctly, you're better off doing less, right? So keep it simple, right? And if you don't know what that looks like, again, as simple as doing a farmer's carry, as simple as towing a sled, as simple as pulling a sled backwards, take care of the basic things, do it with conviction, but then don't forget that you have to sleep and eat, right, in conjunction with those things. So again, it's as simple as that. Sprint once in a while, right? And I would just say this for a high school athlete. Make sure you sprint twice a week. Make sure you lift heavy once a week. Have a training plan that's consistent and a warm-up that's more consistent, that touches every movement quality. If you can do that over time, you're sneaking in those things that you're going to go ahead and pay off in the long run. But again, rather than getting into the bioenergetic demands with the high school kids, get into the fundamental things, understand what they look like, Make sure that it's fun so you can continue to move forward. If you are a higher level high school guy or lady, right, make sure that you're going to somebody for the more technical movements, and make sure they know how to coach it.